Hello again. I will continue with the emerging packaging technologies. So about active packaging, intelligent packaging, and edible packaging. So it's important to mention that, so we call it emerging packaging technology and not new, because these are kind of technologies that have already been developed since many years ago. But we feel that only now the industries will be able to put it in place and start implementing stuff on this technology, because this is the right moment to use active packaging, intelligent packaging, also edible package. This is because there is a lot of pressure to um, increase shelf life, reduce of materials that have been used by the industry, and that have been some problems, mostly sustainable, related to sustainability, such as plastic materials, high barrier plastic materials, where the multi-layers and quite impossible to recycle materials are being used. Use of edible packaging or biodegradable is one of the points here. So we are able to um, increase shelf life using totally natural compounds, and also the intelligent packaging, because we are able to know the quality of food products, using indicators, using sensors, and also because this intelligent packaging can also be used to communicate with the consumer more than a normal um, packaging, normal label. So here we have a lot of potential. It's something that we are working in our research center. It's something that a lot of research centers and labs are working. The industry is also involved, so there is a lot of possibilities right here. I will talk a little bit about these three emerging technologies, give you some examples, also some studies that we have been developing in the last years, but this is a very interesting topic. So active packaging. What is active packaging? Active packaging is a packaging that will act on the foods or in the environment, on the headspace environment where the food is packed. So will act and have some effect on the shelf life. We are mostly focused on shelf life of these foods. So, and for that, we need to use different compounds that can have different capabilities, some as oxygen scavenging, antioxidants, tocopherol, ascorbic acid, some plant extracts, antimicrobial activity, like some organic acids, chitosan, artemisinin, some enzymes, essential oils, um, some proteins like lactoferrin. So there is some possibilities here, and much more that have been presented for several publications and products in the market. Also, carbon dioxide scavenging or release. I will show you a commercial product using this release of carbon dioxide to control the microbial growth. Also, ethylene scavenging. So for some products, it's very important the ethylene, so to reduce or avoid the maturation of some products, and also regulation of permeability. So this active packaging, for this active packaging, you need to use some compounds that have some functionality. We need to put it in the pack, or in the matrix of the packaging during the extrusion, or through the functionalization to the production of a layer. So there are different approaches where uh, where we can apply this kind of compounds. This is like a scheme to explain a little bit about this. So you have here the active releasing systems. So you have the food, and you have the releasing systems acting in that space or in the food, and you also have the active scavenging systems, where you can uh, cap or scav oxygen, carbon dioxide, moisture, ethylene, also some other that can be formed by the product. There are a lot of compounds that have this capability. But you can divide these antimicrobial packaging systems in three main groups. One of these, so we always have to have this active barrier, and then you have the barrier layer, active layer, and then you can make a like a multi-layer because you don't want that these active compounds interact with the atmosphere only outside the package. So in most of the cases, you have a layer that is the layer that is in contact with your hands and outside, and then you have active layer. And then this active layer can act in different ways. So you have the possibility of the migration of the compounds to the foods. And in that case, you need to use compounds that are accepted for you to be used in foods, so that you are able to heat these compounds in your meal. And in that case, you have the migration. And you can have this active layer, and you have the antimicrobial agents going directly to the food in this, so you don't have this interface. I can show you here with the pointer. You can see here is the figure A. And then you can also have this release for the headspace. It's also interesting because being the headspace, you can also control in the form more homogeneous the surface of the food. And then you have the possibility as well, very close to the A, but you don't have the migration of the compounds to the food. So you have the no migrating system. In fact, you have these particles or materials embedded in the surface, and then only with the contact you are able to reduce the imagine the microbial growth. In this case, you can use some compounds that if don't migrate to foods, you are able to use it, some nanoparticles or other compounds. So it's expected that these compounds are not in the food when you are eating them. So in this case as well, as I mentioned before, you need to make very good migration tests to ensure that you are not migrating any kind of these compounds to the food that you are eating. So this is very important. The legislation is very clear when you are using antimicrobial compounds or antimicrobial substance or antioxidants. You need to guarantee that these compounds, if migrate, they are allowed in the food that you are applying, or if don't migrate, you have to guarantee that they don't migrate. And this, you need to make some tests. I will show you some of the examples. If you remember, I show you our tests are adding some nanoclays by casting in polysaccharide-based films. We, besides the water vapor permeability and carbon dioxide and oxygen that I showed to you, we also tested the antimicrobial activity against Listeria. So to remember, we add different nanoclays, concentrations, only one nanoclay, but different concentrations of these clays at 30B. So 1, 2, 4, 8, and 60% of this clause 30B in the matrix, and we saw that we have a bacteriostatic effect for 1 and 2%, and only for 4, 8, and 16, you have to have this antimicrobial capacity, and you have the reduction of this growth. And that happens more clear for 24 hours. So you have 0.0, and then you have 8 hours and 24. So we see by here that we have antimicrobial active film with nanoclay, but in this case, nanoclay you have to be careful because should not migrate to foods. Is allowed in some plastics, but we have to be guaranteed that they have no any kind of migration. But it's very interesting to have this material that have the two possibilities of reinforce and improve the barrier properties, as I showed before, but also have this active capability to degrade some bacteria like Listeria. That is a huge problem in the food industry. Other of the examples are essential oils that can be added by electrospinning. If you remember, we are able to make fibers and layers in the surface of different substrates. Here was not in paper, as I showed before, but here we try to do two things. We try to make encapsulate essential oil in nanofibers. In this case, this fiber was from a protein, cortisone, was dissolved in ethanol, and then we make the fibers above the film of PHBV. is a polydioxybutyrate, is a biodegradable material that has been tested by several companies, and is quite interesting for these new sustainable materials. And then we try to evaluate how this essential oil will behave in different conditions. So we tested different structures. So we produce a PHBV layer with only Zane fibers. We tested PHBV with Zane and other PHBV layer, and we tested PHBV, Zane, and alginate layer. That is this image, this cross section that you see here is one of the examples. So you have a PHBV layer and then alginate. Alginate is from algae, so it's sodium alginate, and then we produce the films. You put the fibers, we electrospoon the fibers here in PHBV, and then by compressing molding, we make very thin film. And we were able to reduce the microbial growth in 2 of the systems, but was more clear when you use this kind of structure, when you use PHBV, Zane PHBV. This CNMA is the essential oil, this is the cinnamaldate, so it's from cinnamon, and we saw that we are able to reduce the growth of listeria in the day 24 hours and after 30 days. So it's clear that depending on the structure that you are using, in this case, you are not protecting. In the case of PHBV Zane, we believe that this happens because you are not protecting your essential oil with the additional layer. So you only is encapsulated in the fibers of Zane. But then when you put additional layer like PHBV or alginate, in alginate also have some effect. But when you have the additional layer such as PHBV, you are able to protect this this release. And it's clear as well that depending of the time, so 0 days and 30 days, we decrease the activity. That is quite normal in essential oils because they are volatile and you are losing the activity during the storage. Other of the tests that we did was using layer by layer. If you remember, the layer by layer allow us to produce different layers of different materials, can be polymers, can be nanoparticles in a substrate. Here we try to develop a multi-layer system in a PET substrate, polyethylene terephthalate. So we produce 2 kind of systems. In this case, we encapsulate essential oil, I think was carvacrol, in Zane nanoparticles. So you produce Zane nanoparticles, and then Zane nanoparticles have a positive charge, and so this layer by layer, we need opposite charge to be able to build this multi-layer system. So because they are based on electrostatic interactions, we need to have a positive and a negative charge. So what we did was to put PET, alginate, Zane nanoparticles, alginate, Zane nanoparticles, alginate. So we have here our essential oil in Zane nanoparticles, and in the other, we try to use alginate, Zane nanoparticles, alginate, chitosan, and alginate. And then we go through some tests. In this case, we try this against fungus. In this case, Alternaria. And we saw that we are able to reduce the growth if you are using this system. That is interesting because you are using a very low amount of essential oil. You are working at nanoscale, and you are able to protect this capability during several days. So you can see that after 30 days, you still have this activity, such as in day 5. And this is also important because then we use PET as a substrate, but we can also use the system directly in foods or other kind of substrates. These are some examples of active packaging. You can see here some commercial examples. These cell compacts. Here we have a system, a pad that absorbs these acid liquids and moisture. and then with this liquid and moisture, the pad has create a reaction that releases carbon dioxide. This is very interesting because it's like a smart packaging that we are developing, because you are only releasing when the liquids are um, are released, and this liquid release is related with shelf life of the product. And by releasing this carbon dioxide, the the gas composition in the packaging is maintained and the bacterial growth is decreased, resulting in a prolonged shelf life. So it's very interesting, the approach from this company. Also, not in a primary packaging, but mostly in a transportation process. So this is you can call it a primary packaging and also a secondary package, but in this case, it's cardboard, where they apply a coating to this cardboard. It's dry coat, emul active. They are based in the active compounds that are released from the paperboard and then act uh, as antimicrobial, inhibiting growth of spoilage fungi through the use of volatile natural extracts. So this is also a very interesting approach that some companies, in this case is one company that sells both, as using for fruits and vegetables. Um, Other of the possibilities is not to apply in the packaging, but use this kind of uh, sachets. So this sachet is a way to avoid ethylene. So it's not avoiding, it's mostly scavenging or removing the ethylene from the air around the products or around on this packaging. So there are a lot of these kind of sachets in different packaging materials. You can see it in something sometimes in your clothes. When you have some sachets that is used for the moisture, you can have that for gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide, for the release and scavenging. But it's known that depending of the region of the world that you are living, this is not seen as a very good option for primary packaging. No one wants to open some package of meat or fruits and see this kind of sachets inside. But depending some countries like Japan, this is quite usual to see this inside the packaging, and they are using this to control the shelf life of the products. So these are some examples um, of active packaging that have been used in the market. Regarding intelligent packaging, so if the active packaging, you are um, acting in the foods, in the intelligent packaging, you are giving information to the consumer or to the distributor or to the retailer about your food quality. This is the way that intelligent packaging works. So it's giving information about the food, about the quality of food, safety, the origin, give you information about what is happening there. There is like a connection between intelligent and active when you have some responsive packaging, where normally I call it smart packaging, and I'll show you an example how it can works. So you can have indicators, from temperature indicators, you have gas concentration indicators. Imagine that you have a packaging that should be at 8 degrees, and in some case during the distribution is go high and reach 20 or 30. You have a kind of these indicators. You'll know when you buy it, or receiving a retailer, you'll see this label. It's like a label, and you'll see that they reach 30 degrees or 20 degrees or reach some kind of threshold. The same for the gases. Some of the gases are indicator of microbiological spoilage. So if you are using it, an indicator, you can know, or you can assess the quality of your product. Consumption temperature indicators, so some inks, spoilage indicators, it's the same way. So you can have this information in a label when you put it in inside of packaging. But in this case, also permeability regulation for some polymers that change with the temperature. In some cases, when you want to regulate this permeability. One of the key points in intelligent packaging and these kind of indicators is that besides temperature that can be not need to be in contact with foods. In some cases, you need to have contact with food. So the indicators of gases, of some molecules, if you want to have a sensor that detects bacteria inside your packaging, you need to have some of these compounds of systems in contact to your food. And this can be a problem for the consumer and for safety, because you have, in the same case here, like in the packaging, you need to, every kind of packaging in these systems, you have to guarantee that you don't have the migration. And if you have a migration of some compound that is not suitable for consumption, we'll have a problem. And for that, some of the intelligent packaging systems that were developed in the past were not used in the industry because they have these kind of problems, and also because the price is very high, and in some cases does not make any sense to have intelligent packaging in some of the systems. One of the things that is changing is the intelligent packaging, but to give some information to the consumers. Imagine that if you have a barcode or the kind of NFC system that can connect to your smartphone, and you reach your product, and you can have more information than the one that is in the labels or in the packaging. Imagine that you want to know the source, the certification process, if you want to know automatically if you have some allergens or not, or if you have some kind of advice in your pop-up in your smartphone saying that these product have some proteins or something that you cannot eat. So you can, this kind of system already exists in the market. That was one of the on the points that have been explored for this intelligent packaging. So when you are talking about this, we are talking about interactive packaging. So that can give you information that can be passive or active. Most of them are passive, so you have to go there with your smartphone and receive the information. But this interactive packaging also can refer to data carrier devices, can store information, and also can store information about the distribution process. So if you have temperature, relative humidity during the process that you need to control, you can have a data carrier, data logger that then you can pick up and see in a device if they were controlled, if there are any kind of peak of temperature or humidity, or if it's within your range of quality and safety. Also some sensors like pH temperature of the package and its content. So they can be also connected with indicators, or you can use a sensor and then have any kind of device, electronic device, to give you the information about the pH and temperature. The indicators are very nice, easy to produce, but they are more qualitative than quantitative. So they give you visual information about any kind of molecule that can be really important to you to understand if the shelf life was if your product is not within the shelf life conditions or parameters that you established in the beginning. And normally it's used like a color intensity or irreversible diffusion of any kind of material. As I mentioned, when you are between intelligent and active, I like to call it smart packaging. And it's like the case of these thermoresponsive nanogels that we developed in the past. So the idea of these gels was to try to develop some packaging that only release active compounds if needed. Imagine that you have some cheese products that if are at 80 degrees or 10 degrees is not a problem. They are not any kind of microbial growth, but if there is an increase of the temperature to 20, 30, 35 degrees, the microbial growth increase. And in that case, we'll need any kind of compound to decrease that growth. This happens a lot in distribution process when you have the very nice refrigerated chambers and that are used for this for the storage or distribution. But in some cases, these chambers have a problem and the temperature rise, and then you have a problem during the supply chain. And if you have this kind of system, maybe you can reduce microbial growth and the quality and improve the quality of the products. In this case, we use these nano hydrogels based on this penipa, and we incorporate natamycin. That is a very well-known antifungal used in cheese and meat products. And we add these nano hydrogels to a polysaccharide-based film. You can see here some of these nano hydrogels in the surface by these scanning electron microscopy images. And we approach this by a simple way. So we put the active molecule in the film, and then we compare it with the active molecule when incorporated in these nanohydrogels. And then we did some release studies at different temperatures, so 10 degrees and 37. So the gel or nanohydrogel only released compounds at above 32 degrees, so we used 37, and we expect that at 10 degrees to maintain stable. And we saw that. So you can be here in the dark points. That is the free natamycin, so it's not encapsulated in nano hydrogels. So at 10 and 37 degrees, the behavior is very similar. And then we compare the encapsulated natamycin at 37 and 10 degrees. And you can see here that if you compare the 10 with 37, that at 10 the release is very slow and a small amount is released. But when you go to 37, we have a very big release of this active compound. So the nanogel is responding, is giving a response to the temperature and is releasing the compound. So we show with this work that it's possible to have this kind of system. So a packaging the only release if there is a temperature abuse. Only to give you a detail here, you can see that for encapsulated values are lower than the free because the loading capacity is lower, and we believe that we don't need to use so large as amount. So the free natamycin incorporated is higher than encapsulated. So here we are in the maximum value as here. So in the 10 degrees when encapsulated, we don't have the release of the compounds. And this is the kind of systems that we are able to develop using intelligent materials, but with active properties. Here are some examples of some commercial products. This fresh code innovative color indicator is from a company from Spain. So they have this white and dark label. If it's white is okay, and if it's dark is not okay. The foods, they have like a scale, and the ink is gradually changing the color to indicate the level of freshness of this meat product. In this case, is chicken. The product is no longer suitable for consumption when the label turns fully black. So this is based on the release of some compounds from the meat that is related with the freshness of the meat. Also a KPIT indicator, so it's a data logger for the temperature that you can see in this image that is also used. So is applied to a product and records the temperature at which the product is exposed to each time, and can give you information of the temperature and history temperature of the product. And then you have this kind of interactive packaging from Story Instant. Is a company from Sweden that is based on near field communication, EFC, as I mentioned, and is possible to mark the presence of allergenic ingredients that will make an alert in the consumer's mobile device. And so if you are buying products with this technology and you have some kind of allergen compounds that you cannot hit, they will give you the indication in your smartphone. This is the kind of application that intelligent packaging can be used, and I believe that is quite interesting. So regarding the edible packaging, and go through the edible packaging is my last topic before going to the questions. Edible packaging can exist in the form of film or coating, and can be taken with food, so you can wash it and clean the food surface, but you also can eat it, and is to control the release of active compounds from the foods as well. And in some cases can be a best barrier gas, can be best barrier to gases that some synthetic plastic materials. That is true in the case of oxygen and carbon dioxide, not for the water vapor, but for oxygen in some cases. These kind of polymers are very, very good barriers. To make here the difference between edible films are produced by casting or extrusion or compressive molding, as I mentioned before in the processing technologies, but they are produced and films are added as wrapping, can be used to wrap the foods or to protect foods as a normal packaging, but they are edible. You eat it if you want. And then you have these edible coatings. And in the case of edible coatings, these materials are applied directly on foods. So by spraying immersion of the foods, film forming solution is spread in the surface and it dried in the surface, and then form a very thin layer of this material that will be part of the food. So can be eaten or clean, but will protect food against some permeability or gases that can be avoided by this thin layer. They can also be used as a way to put some antimicrobial and antioxidants in the surface of food products, and with this increase the shelf life. This is quite an image that we can use to understand this. So we have the fruit product, we have the coating or the film. You can control the water vapor, the gases, and volatile compounds, and you can add some functional compounds, antifungal, antioxidants, and antibacterial for the foods in the surface, because in most of some of the foods products, the microbial growth starts from outside, and from that case can be very suitable, this kind of technology and this kind of packaging. I will show you some examples that we developed. So in this case, is a coating that was based on galactomannan, polysaccharide protein, and glycerol. And we apply these coatings for apples and mangoes, and then we check if this coating were able to decrease the gas transfer rate of these two fruits. And we check that for apple and mango, we are able to reduce the carbon dioxide and oxygen transfer rate for both products. So applying a coating with this in the surface of these fruits, we are able to decrease the gas transfer rate. We also checked then, not with these products, but with others, the ethylene. So we are able to increase the shelf life by reducing this respiration process of the fruits. We also are able to add some compounds, in this case, a chitosan coating loaded with natamycin with different concentrations of this natamycin. You can see A, B, C, and D with different increasing concentrations. And we were able to decrease the microbial growth and inhibit this fungus during 7 days. They was also able to decrease the cheese weight loss. That in cheese is one of the problems. So this coating also acts as a barrier to water vapor and to the weight loss of the product. When you talk about edible packaging, what I showed before is a simple coating process. So we are dipping or spraying, but there are other possibilities. You can produce multi-layer coatings. If you remember the layer by layer technology in the substrate or in the glass or a paper or other kind of substrate, we can also do the same to fruits and vegetables and other kind of products. We tested mostly in all foods, and you can see here how it goes. So you have your foods and you make this immersion process, wash, dip, wash. So we make the immersion in a polymer, wash another polymer, wash another polymer, and then you have your coated object, or in this case, fruit. And then you have this surface structure, build the nano and the multi-layer. These are kind of components that you can use, polymers, particles, droplets, that can be used for encapsulation. I have to show you with Z nanoparticles, lipids, and the polar system. So depending of the material that you are using, you can add here to the surface different compounds to build this multi-layer. These multi-layer coatings can be applied by immersion method, that is most used because it's more affordable, or also by spray method. And we are right now, we tested a lot immersion method, but we are right now focused on the spray, because we believe that the spray method can be mostly used for industrial applications, and we can reduce the amount of material that is used, and with that save some money from the companies. Here I show you some examples. This is a multi-layer based on pectin and chitosan in mangoes. So you can see here without coating after 45 days, and here coating of pectin and chitosan after 45 days. You can see here by visual observation. We also have other kind of data, but I think for here is very clear that without coating we have the, the fruit that reach the values is not okay for consumption, and with the multi-layers still have some quality that you can assume that you can consume these mangoes. And so we show that we are able to increase the shelf life with this system with pectin and chitosan. I want to show this detail. So this was also we also did this in a mango surface, in this case with alginate and chitosan, and then we cut the we cut the mango, and we did the cross section analysis in the scanning electron microscopy, and we saw this is this image A is the mango surface, can be here is dried, and then here you have the different multi-layers and coating that is formed by this multi-layer system. You have the chitosan and alginate, in this case 5 layers. So with this image and other techniques, we show that we are building this multi-layer system in the surface of the fruits. This is in tomatoes. So this in this multi-layer was alginate, chitosan, and in some cases we use aloe vera as active compound. You can see here uncoated with without aloe vera and aloe vera at 11 degrees and 20 degrees, because they are normally the conditions used to store tomatoes, and you can see that there is effect, clear effect of the multi-layer system, mostly with aloe vera because of some antimicrobial and antioxidant compounds that are very well known. And you can see here that we have this effect in the tomatoes, and we are able to increase shelf life with these kind of technologies. Also to show you in cheese, so we also did some tests with alginates and lysozyme using uncoated at 0 days. You can see here uncoated. So in uncoated, you can see the growth of the fungi in the some fungus in the surface. We tested also other kind of tests, and we check that the multi-layer allow us to increase shelf life of these cheese products. So these are some my final conclusions. I hope you enjoy the classes and the lessons. I think that we'll need some time to discuss most of the points that I present today. But in the end, I think that what I believe that you can conclude from here is that select a packaging for a specific product is not easy. So depends of a very great number of factors that can be mentioned: requirements, the product characteristics, so the shelf life that we are trying to reach, requirements of the packaging material, the package size or product variations. So also the marketing questions are very important. If the people or the consumers are looking for a very unique or individual packaging, or if they prefer to buy a very big package with a lot of foods, the way that they want to read their labels, the colors, so and the cost. The cost is also important. And during our developments and working with industry, we have different points depending of the company that we are working and their goal. We have companies that mostly focus on improving their efficiency and using different materials to improve and going through requirements of the companies, and they are very well succeed. So they are working very well, mostly here in Portugal and all Europe. And you have other companies that in the same way that are very success in their business, they are also working very innovative products and trying to go through new materials, sustainable materials, active and intelligent packaging systems. So we have different experience with the companies, and I think that in the end these need to be developed case by case according with the needs of the company. We work in our lab and our research center focus on serving the clients that are the research. Since we are a research center, our clients are the companies, but we also are very interested in trying to go through new ideas, new topics, trying to go through science and technology, and try to also to develop new to have new developments in our portfolio. So I show here some books if you want to go through some of the interesting books that are available. Two were edited by us, one about edible food packaging, and other by nanomaterials for food packaging. But you also have this Robertson, that is a very nice book that touch all the packaging materials available. And also from Han, that was one of the books that I consult more in the last years since I started in this topic, that is innovation in food packaging. I don't know if there is other edition, but it's also a very nice book to talk about innovation in food packaging. So thank you very much. I think that we'll have time to questions. I will be available. So and I hope that you enjoy this class.